Well, I'm glad to welcome another guest back into our studio situation, and this is Terry Liddiard from Travel Watch. We know you from way back, your Manx Airlines days, and we must do another thing about your what's going on down the airport.
Oh yeah, that would
another story.
Go on, but that was being locked away for 3 months as well, of course.
Anyway, yeah. But on a serious note here, I mean, what is going to go on with air travel? I mean, we hear all these things about what's going on in City, for instance. It's back, but it's going to go again. Have you got more information? I know you're concerned about this.
Well, I think air services generally, I mean, not just the island, aviation generally worldwide is in an extraordinary position. But the fact is that now we've got through the worst of the virus, as we believe over here, it's now important to start planning our way out of it. And you've got to be now developing your energies on strategies to enable business to recover and tourism, everything else. And one of the first things is air services. And of course, nothing to do with pandemic, but remember Flybe, who do the majority of our services, went out of business just a few days before all this happened. So we're really at the bottom in many ways.
There's talk of the Flybe name coming back. I don't know what you're hearing about that yourself. Is that just a very early...
I've heard it several times. Yeah. And there's somebody, I think, in Australia saying they would start flying it. The fact is that Flybe no longer exists as an airline. Mm-hmm. So you can't just buy an airline and start operating. They'd have to go right through the whole formation of CAA requirements, financial requirements. I don't see it happening.
Okay.
I'd love to.
We have the situation with EasyJet that they were going to put flights on, but the government said, well, there's no point because you can't get in and out.
Well, yeah.
I mean, where are we up to on that one?
Well, there's no more information than the borders. And until the borders open, I don't think any air services seriously are going to start. I think EasyJet were, I'm not sure, being too optimistic. Maybe it was just a promotional thing to sell seats and get things. But there's no way in which any serious air services can start with the borders closed.
Right. Now, there's been this service to Heathrow bizarrely going on.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that about? I mean, I know someone's on it. They were the only person on the flight. They had to have the special permission to come in.
Yeah.
I think it wasn't too expensive either. But what is going on? Running a service with nobody on? Is the government involved? Is someone paying all this?
Yeah. Well, what happened was they obviously needed to keep a livable service for the patient transfers. So they're doing that with 1 or 2 flights a day to Liverpool.
Is this Logan doing that?
Logan Air doing it.
Yeah.
At the same time, so the government are paying for that. At the same time, the government also agreed to, I think, 1 flight a day to Manchester, just to give a link to the northwest, but also quite important to Logan Air to bring crews over and change aircraft. And then London City, they presumably wanted to keep an ongoing presence to London, but London City Airport then closed down completely. And so British Airways said, well, we can switch it to Heathrow, which they did. So it's just a token service to London.
But we literally the other day, up comes City again, and someone's already written up about it that you can't get a booking past September or something on that. So there's a lot of
unfortunate coincidences there. Yeah, they decided to reopen London City as things began to look a bit more promising. And as luck would have it, the first flight out was a flight to the Isle of Man, which came in with 6 passengers and went out with another 6 passengers. But it got a lot of publicity. Yeah. And sadly, the next day, I think it was, British Airways announced that they weren't taking bookings beyond 13th of September.
Is that an official stop, or is that just a wait and see thing, do you think?
According to British Airways, I believe it's the end. Right. Whether it is or not, whether there's further negotiations, don't know at the moment.
We could be in quite a different world if we don't get these services back, right? I mean, part of the Isle of Man's attraction is it's easy to get X, Y,
Z.
Yeah,
well, it's only a couple of years ago, Paul, we had 8 services a day to London.
8? Yeah,
we had 4 Flybe and 1 EasyJet to Gatwick.
Yeah.
And we had 3 to London City every day.
Wow.
Now, if all goes according to their plans, we're going to have 1 flight a day to Gatwick.
And a knock on with Ronaldsway, I mean, as we record this, Swissport, whatever they're called, is that right? They've announced massive redundancies in their luggage handling side of things.
Swissport are, there's 2 major handling agents around the line, Menzies and Swissport, and they're both going to have to lay off huge numbers of people. It's just don't work.
Yeah.
I mean, less than 5% of the scheduled passengers are going through Heathrow.
So, talk about Heathrow there. We had that service for a while, when Flybe was still going, and
Flybe service.
Yeah, I mean, and then it stopped there. I mean, did you think that there was a market there for it?
That was another odd one. That was never a service.
They were just holding a
slot for Virgin.
Yeah.
Because once they got into this Connect group tied up with Virgin Atlantic. They had some slots there, and if you don't use 80% of your slots, you lose them. So it's cheaper to put an aircraft in to use it.
I went on it, and I was surprised there wasn't more excitement about it. Maybe because to me Heathrow is such a nice place to get in and out, communication, travelling, that sort of thing. But it never was that successful, do you think, or was it?
Well, I used it a couple of times. The fares were very attractive, and they weren't economical fares. They couldn't have carried on at that, but it was just helping to pay for the aircraft.
Yeah,
I think it was a very good service, and I believe there's probably still a chance that you could operate to Heathrow for another 2 or 3 years. Well, British Airways have cut back so hugely.
Because the Channel Islands announced that the BA are flying into Heathrow when they start again. Because obviously Gatwick's up the Swanee for a bit longer, I guess. Is that right?
Well, British Airways have said they're coming out of Gatwick entirely.
And that's you think that's going to be a long term? Yeah.
So if they're going to carry on flying Jersey-London, they'll have to go to Heathrow. But
talking about Channel Islands, Arini and airbridges seem to be in the news. Quite a lot of excitement, I believe, down there. I was watching the press conference the other day, and their chief minister did confirm they are very much interested in some sort of arrangement. Now, it will be a short-term one because everyone will open up eventually. But do you see that as a goer?
Well, I think it's quite an interesting possibility. And I'm not totally up to date with it, but I know it's been discussed with travel agent and.
I'm hearing July is going to happen. Well, that's pretty soon.
There, yeah. I think the whole thing depends. It really requires both islands to give up their 14-day quarantine for passengers arriving from the other island.
Exemption for this.
As long as those both disappear together, great.
Because it would help the economy. I mean, I'm not just thinking about we'll spend money down there and vice versa, but it's a hoteliers I'm thinking about, particularly, and that side of thing, hospitality.
Just a few flights a week. I don't think it's going to be hard to find 40 people on the Isle of Man who'd love to have a week in Guernsey, particularly at this time of the year. Yeah. And people in Guernsey coming. This is a very different island.
People love direct flights anyway. Not going via somewhere else.
Absolutely, God, yes. So
you can't get any more direct.
No, I think it's purely as long as the two governments can come to an arrangement. I think it could work well.
So to sum things up, Terry, what is your look on things for the near future and maybe even a bit longer future? How do you think we're going to fare?
Well, I think I've got to accept that we're in limbo until something happens on the borders. If there then becomes the permanent arrangement for the borders to be opened to some extent, then you'll have to, ideally you'd want an airline ready to start with, perhaps 2 services a day to Manchester instead of the 5 we used to have, a couple of services a day to Liverpool, and just build it up as demand grows. And I think demand will grow. Basically, the traffic here is split into 3 groups. There's what we call VFR, visiting friends and relatives. I think that should recover very quickly because people are bursting to get off the island and visit family again. There's tourism. Well, I think that will, as long as we're ready in good time for next year's TT, I think once that goes, I think that will recover very quickly. The biggest question mark is probably business travel, because who knows what habits have changed in this long period of people working from home, using Zoom, all sorts of things. But what we really need to have an organisation in place that will be prepared to move frequencies up as demand comes up. Because a lot of our services actually require a high frequency to make them attractive. Like if you're going through Manchester, you never have to wait more than 2 hours for the next flight to the Isle of Man, which is great. So I think that will be, but the situation is, how do you get an airline to come here and sit here with aircraft they're only going to use for a couple of hours a day, first of all, then build it up to 3 flights, 4 flights. And that's very difficult. And how you do that, that's a problem.
The government were kind of not saying no to some sort of thing that they run themselves. I don't know how true that was, but they own the sting packet, so why not own an airline? But we keep talking about this Arini thing. I mean, they lose a lot of money down there, but
Well, but it's not. There's a lot of stories going around about how much Arini lose, but certainly by part of their requirements, they have to operate a service between Guernsey and Alderney, and that costs £1 million a year. Right. So the losses should be seen in that context.
Well,
I mean, up to now, Travel Watch and me personally have not been greatly in favour of a local airline because it's difficult to run. But
bring Manx Airlines back.
Experience, yeah.
Come on, let's have Manx Airlines back. Everyone moaned about it, and then they all loved it when it goes, don't they?
Now, yeah. But I've actually changed my mind now because there's actually a unique opportunity because aircraft are available quite cheaply now because there's so many lying around. We've got crews based on the island who without jobs, very experienced people. A lot of them ex-Manx Airlines have been flying right the way through. We've got a precedent with the government already buying the steam packet company, which has been pretty well received. I think it's gone down reasonably well. So there is an organisation in place that could own an airline as well. But probably most importantly, the thing that's always held us back is the fact that you can't get slots at a big London airport. I mean, since we had 3 slots a day at Manchester, at Heathrow. Manx.
Can you believe? I mean, it still doesn't. It's amazing, isn't it?
And then when British Airways bought the airline, they moved it obviously to Gatwick. But even then, we enjoyed 4 flights a day from Flybe, which was really good, and then the EasyJet as well. So that was a very good combination. But for the first time for many, many years, I believe that's going to be quite a lot of slots available at Gatwick, because British Airways pulled out, Virgin Atlantic pulled out.
So Gatwick, not Heathrow, then use it. I mean, that's just too much.
It would have to, yes. Yeah. Practically, I think so. You could probably get slots at Heathrow for maybe 2 or 3 years. Yeah. But then, of course, you've got to go through the trauma of moving back again to somewhere else.
You want regular things, and as much as I love EasyJet, you have to always constantly look at the schedule to see what they're doing that particular day.
Well, exactly, yeah. And when they're only one flight a day, and it doesn't happen until 9 o'clock at night, it's obviously fits in with their operating schedule, but
we're not top of their priority, are we? Sure.
No, you could get that impression. But the difference, one of the differences, of course, is an islander-based airline actually has to satisfy the needs of the island, not the needs just of the airline. But I believe that you could then get, you're quite right, you won't back consistency, because the big problem has been the last few years uncertainty. Because airlines have come and gone, or they've changed their schedules to suit themselves, not the island. So the possibility of having your own airline, owned by the government but managed by airline people, is probably feasible now for the first time. Yeah, and slots are free.
And as you said, there's these people on the Isle of Man. I mean, I feel so sorry for the Flybe people, because they keep opening and shutting that centre.
I know.
They just keep changing their minds, and then
I can't believe that they made the decision to reopen.
Yeah.
All the crews moved back.
Yeah.
And then they hadn't been going 2 months before they closed it.
Finally, open or closed skies.
No question in my mind. A lot of misunderstanding about this. Most of the people who talk about open skies don't know what it means and don't know the effect it's had. But basically, it's only a small market. To get a reasonable service, you've got to have an airline operating 3 or 4 flights a day to most destinations. You can't afford to put that at risk by, at the moment, as I say, before pre-pandemic, you had Flybe doing their 5 flights a day to Manchester, doing a wonderful service, because that had taken over as the most important connecting point once Gatwick disappeared. But all you need now is some airline in Manchester, got a few hours on the ground of a bigger aircraft, do 1 flight a day to the Isle of Man, silly prices. Maybe only 2 or 3 flights a week, maybe not in the winter, but it's enough to push the whole thing into loss. So I think there's got to be some control. What annoys me is, yes, people, you hear politicians even saying, well, we don't want closed skies. Well, nobody's ever suggested closed skies. What we're saying is that the island should have some influence in what air services they get.
A user agreement, like the boat. How does?
Well, but not a single operator user agreement.
Oh, I see.
You set down certain rules, and I mean it's very simply done. What you do is you tell all the airlines that if you want to operate regular services in here, that's fine. You're very welcome. Just give us your application, and we'll say if it's good for the island, rubber stamp, yes, come in. But at least it gives you the opportunity to look. First of all, you do a study of the airline's finances, which is quite important, because you've had some fairly dodgy people come in and not last long, and that doesn't do any good.
Who'll be running an airline?
Not me.
No, seriously, I mean, they always say that one of them going out of business. I mean, how many profitable airlines are there?
Well, at the moment, none, I would say. No. But one of the other things is then, with the government owning all or part of the airline, at least you've got a certain stability. And I think that's very important. And to have permanent access, the government then, in effect, has permanent access to the slots at Gatwick, for example.
It should be a monopoly, though, couldn't it, in the making, if a government actually...
Well, no, because if another airline applies to come on this route or that route, they apply for it, and you have an independent licensing authority here, about 6 people, volunteers, representing tourism, business, all these things. No. And you say, is it good for the Isle of Man?
Yeah.
And I would say most applications would be waved through. But you don't want to introduce something that would destroy the basic infrastructure. So that's quite easily done. But we can't treat this like an unlimited.
No one could
market
see
size.
this one, could they? I mean,
No.
It's what
No,
amazing
no,
times.
Absolutely.
Do you think there'd be any issues with the airport? I mean, the staff-wise here. But I should ask you that. Sorry, as a final fight. I mean, there's going to be less people. Therefore, they've got their numbers are designed for what they had.
Don't forget they've been keeping the airport open right through this system with 3 flights a day with about 18 passengers.
Yeah.
So they've done, but I believe they've been working pretty sensibly, and various people have moved to other government departments who need extra staff because of the emergency. So I think they've been fairly fluid on that. So it works.
Well, thanks for joining us. And we won't talk about any other travel with you because, I mean, we could be talking about prom and all sorts, couldn't we? But that's another day for another person. No. Thank you, Terry, very much.
Oh, you're very welcome.